So if you look at the first...
But there's a question mark on the DTC itself.
No, I think DTC he will push, and he need not wait for the next budget. He needs to carry out...
But he himself has said he wants to comprehensively review the DTC. So
yes, but that review exercise is underway right now as we are speaking.
So do you see him giving you a timeline in the budget on the DTC?
I think he's keen to push the DTC, and given the fact that in 2014 we will not see a full-fledged budget, he will probably move the amendments in the winter session or probably the monsoon session of the Parliament, because you need to bear in mind that the standing committee recommendations have been accepted in totality. So there is really no political pushback insofar as DTC is concerned. To your point, will he raise the tax rate? I don't think he will do that, because he would otherwise just be biting his tongue.
How is he going to mop up revenue?
I think he'll probably carry out a little bit of rejigging in the surcharges.
Okay.
He'll probably make a passionate plea to the so-called rich, but the so-called rich is people who make $200,000 in our country, and impose a surcharge as a temporary measure till the time he's able to meet the fiscal deficit target.
Okay.
But I don't think he's going to collect a whole lot of money.
But what's the quantum that you anticipate, and above what bracket?
Well, I mean, there are all kinds of figures that are being talked about, but the most important figure is this magical figure of 10 million, 1 crore of rupees. So, you know, people who have income above 1 crore of rupees. Crorepati, absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, so, nobody wants to say, "Kaun banega crorepati" anymore, because he's going to come after you.
Yes, but I think it's going to be a temporary measure. But I think on the individual front, there would be a lot of tightening up insofar as administrative aspects are concerned. So this whole menace of black money and US equivalent of FACTA law, you know, all of these things you will see. You know, he's very good in re-engineering many of these things in the budget. So you will see a lot in the fine print.
All right, I'll come to some of the other tax-related bits in just a second. But let me come to you, Pramod Bhasin. And, you know, this is a conversation that we had when the retrospective amendments were actually moved in the budget last year. And there's been so much talk on whether he is going to be able to move on that front, clarify that front, issues of transfer pricing and so on and so forth. Do you really believe that he will use the opportunity in the budget to address some of that, or do you believe that he'd like to do it outside of the budget and not move the amendment to that this time around?
I think on transfer pricing and other areas, I think he will certainly send all the right signals about achieving clarity. I think he recognizes, you know, he's done a lot since the recent time that he's come. He's been already sending all the right signals across to many of us. And so I think on transfer pricing, on tax, on service tax, etc., I think he's going to send the right messages. I don't know what he can do on the retrospective amendment at this point in time. I think, you know, frankly, I can see that he will not approach that topic right now, just to make sure that the budget and others get through, and he addresses that another time. Back to an earlier question you were asking, what can he do to improve revenue? Widen the tax base. We cannot live in a country where barely 5 to 10 million people pay taxes of any material kind.
Yeah.
And that is a huge issue. So you can try and tax the super rich, it's not going to get you a hell of a lot more money, because there aren't enough people paying taxes at that level. So I think if he widens the taxes, that would be one. Two would be move money from subsidies in various areas into infrastructure spending. Send that signal across to the country, and I think it can boost growth, because a lot of it is also about confidence, I think, Shirin, at this point in time. This country is low on morale and confidence, and if you send out the right signals, I think that
Which he's been trying to do for the last couple of months.
Absolutely, and I think rather well, you know, with diesel and other prices going up. I think he's done that nicely, steadily, rather well, and subtly, and I think that's the way he should play. But I do think he must send very strong signals to improve the confidence, and kind of say he'll do the right thing. This is a government that stands for doing the right thing rather than populist measures.
All right, Sunil Godwani, there's been a lot of talk about the fact that this is going to be a budget that is going to focus on the capital markets. He's made absolutely, you know, every effort to try and attract FDI and FI inflows into the country. So this is likely to be a capital market friendly budget. Do you believe he is going to do something in terms of STT rationalization? Do you believe there is likely to be anything on short-term capital gains tax, maybe go all the way as Parthasarathi Shom had recommended? What is the capital market expecting?
He's got a challenge. It's a populist budget versus a realistic budget, because he's got to spur the growth. I think the sentiments are pretty bad at this point. You know, I'm just reading a status, some data the other day. The 80 top companies in India, the debt between 2008 and 12 has gone up nearly 6 times the gross profit. So we are highly in debt. There is no leveraging capacity left for the companies to go and borrow. The sentiments have shifted in a manner that half the retail market is not investing, nobody's investing in the capital market.
Do you believe the Rajiv Gandhi equity scheme, and he is going to give a further boost to that?
He has to open up to every investor. They can create norms to monitor it well, but he has to open it up. STD rationalization, it'll be welcome. I don't know if he'll do it. I think what he should stay away from is a commodity tax that they are talking about, commodity transaction tax. That should not happen. That definitely dampen the market, which is still pretty nascent in nature, at this point.
Yeah.
But more importantly, what the signal needs to go out is that most of the problems we have in India are self-inflicted. We need to send a message, the 49% FDI into insurance. I mean, that's been pending. All insurance companies are under huge stress.
But he's trying. I mean, he needs the opposition to play ball with him on that. He's trying.
It's a challenge. And I think both the opposition and the ruling government need to understand the priority is the country at this point rather than the turf or the territorial attitudes. And I'm sure they've got their reasons for what they are doing. But in a way, all the macro indicators on India have taken a very negative outlook globally at this point. And the debt markets. He has to rationalize the debt markets.
So withholding tax, we're actually going to see that being rationalized further, which is what is being speculated at this point in time.
It's $11 trillion debt market. Emerging market gets about close to $60 trillion. India can get 6 to 7% allocation. Rationalize that, 600 billion coming into the country. It's a serious number. So if the signals are right and people will step back, take it into, understand they're there to stay, we have a way to get out of it, and a very positive way forward,
Okay. Sumant Sinha, I want to talk about some of the pending reform, that we hope will finally, the legislative action will go through this time around. Insurance and pension. My last conversation with the spokesperson of the BJP, where he very clearly said that we will engage with the government if they want to, and we could consider our opposition to 49%. Do you believe we are going to see things like insurance, pension, the GST perhaps move forward in the budget session?
I certainly would hope so, simply because, these are things that have been hanging fire for the longest time. The insurance hiking of the cap to 49%, I think, is certainly something that needs to happen, simply because it will encourage more FDI to come into the country. And I think given our current account deficit right now, we need all the FDI dollars that we can get. So I think that is definitely important. I think in terms of GST, at least there seems to be some positive movement in terms of the state chief ministers and finance ministers seeming to find some common ground with the finance minister and the central government. I don't know that the central government is as yet prepared to implement the whole GST mechanism from, maybe it will take at least another 1 year. But certainly a roadmap can be announced that from next year onwards it should get implemented. So I think that is something that might see light of day. I think the land acquisition bill is something also that they might want to introduce before the elections for sure. It's not something that is entirely very popular with the corporate sector simply because of some of the onerous provisions in there. But I think that is something that will also probably be in there. But I think, one of the key things that we haven't talked about that the finance minister certainly needs to address is this whole issue of the current account deficit. And that is something that, we're running trade deficits of $200 billion every year, about $100 billion.
They've done what they